Hey guys, how's it going? Hopefully, folks can see or hear me. I'm just in front of the camera. I did a revamp of the studio tonight, so I didn't move all the cameras. So I'll give you the shots that we got tonight. It's going to just be we're going to run Epoch Cam on the table. We're going to do an overhead. You can see I did some slight changing there. So I thought I'd just do some general musings here about the table and hopefully try to create some encouragement here tonight around questions and things like that. So I have been working a large portion of the day here in the studio, and as a result, I have got some work done. I may do a little bit on camera tonight. Some people were asking me about doing a live show tonight and if I would do them on the weekend. So I just want to say that doing all these videos is fantastic. They do take a good portion of the day, going live for an hour or two, plus setup, all that stuff does take some time. So plus Joe and I doing the Legion Academy, a couple shows a week as well. It's time consuming. I do want to put out as much content as possible. So if I miss a day here and there, please don't get on my case too much. I know nobody would, but just saying that I'll try to do as many as I can. Talking to a patron today about doing weekend shows, and I was just suggesting that perhaps what I'll do is I'll do a weekend show. Maybe I'll alternate Saturday, Sunday, and I'll go every other week. So I'll do a full weekend show, and then I can do that as a public, kind of watch me work, ask questions, all that sort of stuff. So that was just a patron question. I said that I would do that, and I would talk about that tonight. So there you have it. So that'll put me probably on your screen if you're tuning in, obviously, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'm going to do my own Patreon live show, so that'll be the one on the Train Studio Patron. We'll do Friday. Hopefully, we can do Friday night fights. Just missing that, obviously, with being isolated and insulated from people and all that sort of stuff. But nonetheless, I've been keeping busy, and so if you're kind of popping in and you want to see what's going on, basically what I'm going to be doing is talking a little bit about this piece here that I've been working on and getting done, so you guys can see that I've got considerably more work done on that. And I'm going to just kind of talk about what I've done, and it's a little hard to see, but if I get closer, focus. I'll see if it'll focus. There we go. You guys can see some of the details. There's a lot of layering going on in here, and so we'll talk about that tonight. I'm going to talk about next steps, and I have, let me see here, how many panels do I have left? I have 2 panels left that I need to do the upper portions for, and so I thought I'd just do those really quickly tonight, just because a lot of people have seen me working on this over the last couple days. So again, it doesn't look like much right now, but it's getting there. It's looking a lot more like a hut than a dog food dish, so just a reminder, that's where it started. And yeah, we'll work it up into being something. On the table, I have a jig that I've been working on, just sort of talking about how that's going to look. You can see all those lines. There was a couple variations of how I wanted to do that. I think I finally figured out what I'm going to do. There's not a sundial, although it looks like it, and it is nighttime, so it'd be completely useless. But I will talk about what that's looking like. So, but first and foremost, so that's not the image that I wanted. Let's just throw that back. There we go. First and foremost, though, let's have some people hanging out and let us know what you're working on. Christopher Zenga, I see that you are in chat, and I know that you have been building some Crisis Protocol things out of foam core. So you should let us know how that's going, and let us know your trials and tribulations and the lessons learned that you have done in those builds. So that'll be interesting. Some people are asking about a studio tour. I posted some photos today, so I thought that would be kind of a happy medium. The actual studio this is kind of just the backdrop, and I have my TV here, which helps me look at you guys when I am working. So we have that going on, and then we have the Death Star background, obviously, and I posted some photos of the work area. I see Jace is in here. Jace coming in strong with the Train Studio icon. Very appreciative of that. Jace, of course, doing some work here in the Terrain Studio often and when able. So just working on, hopefully he's working on my stuff as he's listening to this live cast. So and if he is, he's working on some clones for me, and I showed you guys some of those on Legion Academy. All right, Mike coming in strong. All these Friday Night Fight would-be's that aren't able to be here, tuning in here. Painting Stormtroopers this evening, awesome. So Dark Miner's coming back in, spent some time with me last night, quite a bit of time actually. And yeah, fair enough, coming in at the start. Awesome. All the clones, Jace is there. Good. So we got a little viewership. I would encourage you guys, if you can, whatever channels you have or groups, if you want to share stuff out, it's a lot better to hang out. You guys don't need to listen to me. You guys can just come in and have your own conversation in chat. That's always a fun thing to do. So let me just talk here in this camera about the piece that I have here. And well, I'll pause because I got Christopher's comment here, and we'll go deal with that. And I got a dog here making a stop into the studio. So Chris says, totally, it's been some of the most rewarding work I've done. Why am I reading it? I'll just pop it on the screen. There we go. I'm not mathematically inclined, so it was a daunting task to do all the measuring, but it was a real win. Now, Chris, if you're watching me build, I also dislike measurement. I am mathematically inclined. However, when I'm building the replicating and the constant remembering of numbers or how big something is, and was that 17 millimeters or was that a 15 millimeter piece? So what I like to do is I create a lot of jigs and I just use pieces. You'll see me tonight. I'll use one or two to do the window sections that I have left. And so oftentimes, sorry, I got a needy character here. So oftentimes when you're doing that, if you're replicating or you're building things, make yourself some paper templates, make yourself some cardboard templates, and just make it once and then reuse it. And that really speeds up a lot of the time. It speeds up the replication of things, and it's really able to make it enjoyable. And also, if you come back later, if you stop, or if you happen to get distracted, you don't have to try to either look at a piece of paper or remember a mathematical number. You got, oh, that's the jig, that's the left side wall jig. Great, I got that. I'm going to replicate that, and away we go. So that's my trick. That's how I get around a lot of that stuff. Because when you're doing, getting back to this for a second here, when you're doing all these measurements here. Each of these pieces here, for example, each of these rods is a different size. And so what I do is I get a rough cut and then I start, trimming them to fit them in. So full disclosure, Sean gave me all this advice earlier, and the build would not have, yeah, fair enough. I give the same advice a lot. I breed redundancy, and I think it's really important to repeat things, because I think if you hear them a lot of times, multiple ways from multiple people, they kind of become ingrained, and then you actually use those things. If you see something once and don't do anything with it, generally it's not really worth having watched it the first time. So just in terms of actually being able to apply that technique. So like I said, on here, these pieces are all cut individually, so I don't really have a jig for that, but I have a replicating method. I put one end in, then I trim it, and then I start, and I'm really methodical about this. So if you look at this, hopefully from your mind's eye and visually on screen, all those pieces are done by hand, and they're all put in individually by hand. So there's no mathematical formula. This all just is, again, I go by eye, and I really try to let each piece dictate the next and kind of keep that straight line. If I put a ruler on there, could it be a half mil out here and there? Absolutely. But from this point of view here, even close up, it's going to look hopefully quite straight to you guys. So, and then when we get a little bit closer in, if it'll focus, there we go. You guys can see what I have done here with the windows. So it's window, and then another piece right here. It's just a thin veneer, and then in the corner, one more piece there. So I've kind of created that layering effect. And obviously paint will do this wonders. It's hard to see white on white. But each of those pieces have to be hand cut, and so without a jig or a known template, it wouldn't be near as close. So each window, They're probably slightly different because they're all cut by hand. But I think when you get back here and you start looking at that, you guys can see that generally they're all about the same. So awesome. Ben is here working on some phase twos. Fantastic. So got a whole full house tonight. It's fantastic. Invite your friends. You guys also see that I put in the beams. These two, and then there should be one more here. These all face into the tree trunks as I described. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with them. For right now, I just left them blank. I did know I wanted to make them different. I might actually make them hide, do some hide panels here. Just as something different. And you'll also notice with the door, I bulked out. I use these larger framed pieces, and then I just put a little piece along the bottom. So this still has to get some work, but for right now, it's just going to be a cavity, and I can go ahead and sink the door in later. The only other thing that I need to do before I can actually glue it down to the walkway is I need to do this one and this one. I need to finish the paneling on there, so you'll notice it doesn't have the recessed stuff. So I'll probably do that on camera for you guys tonight. And I'm gonna move over to the other camera right now. Now we got a little bit of a crowd hanging out here, and we'll talk about the other pieces that need to be worked on here in the coming time. So let me mute this microphone, and hopefully okay, so the thought is that you guys should be able to pick me up on this microphone. Please let me know if you will and can hear me. There's a question here in chat. Sean, will you put PVC glue on, or PVC glue wash on that before you paint? I'm scared that it'll ruin all the work. I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that, Chris. So if you want to let me know what work and what are you concerned with. It's a good question, potentially. I'm just not 100% sure I fully understand. So if you want to help me out, I will attempt to answer that even better. So this is not the M50, so it'll look a little bit different tonight, but hopefully I can get a bit closer up here tonight. So I'm just trying out some different angles in the next little bit. It definitely picks up stuff when I'm closer, so you guys can see all of that. So we're going to give this a coating. We're going to give it some, I'm not 100% sure. I think I might do like hide here. These are going to be, these rails are going to be a brassy color. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to do hide in between them or not. And then at the top, I'm going to do some layers of brown and some weathering there as well. And then obviously we're going to do some treatment to the roof, probably get like a reddish brown, and then we'll do some moss, and we'll definitely do some actual moss growth on here. So we'll do some moss staining and some ink, and then we'll do some actual moss growth. This will get a coating of the hide. And then I think, like I said, I might do these panels here up with the hide as well, just to kind of tie that whole look in. So additionally, what we have going on is, let me just pop this out. This is going on here, as you guys have seen before. I'm going to actually just tip this camera up a little bit. And hopefully that will give you guys a little bit, maybe I can just make a slight adjustment here. There we go. Let me just go there, and hopefully that's a bit better. So you guys have seen this sort of concept here, that it's going to go on, there we go. It's going to go on this piece, and then this obviously slopes down under the tree. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bulk this out with the skewers. Now let me just talk about what that's going to look like and how that design is going to work. Let me get back to chat. Chat's busy tonight, so it's fantastic. Okay, so Chris says that he's built with foam core buildings and it's taken me hours, but I'm wondering if paint directly applied to the foam core will damage it in any way. Okay, so I think maybe, Chris, are you thinking that this is foam core here? And I'll leave that question. If you're thinking this is foam core, this is actually styrene, And so it's not foam core at all. This is actually hard plastic, 2 mil plastic built up with another whole layer. So it's actually about 3 mil thick. So really thick. Paint's gonna go on this perfectly fine. This, on the other hand, is, let me just pop this other light on here. Boom, there we go. This, on the other hand, is foam core. However, it is going to get skewers on top and bottom, and so I'm not going to be applying a lot of like watery type material to this. And so this will just get airbrushed. I'm not necessarily worried about this warping because it's going to have skewers on top and bottom and should give it lots of strength. So I think maybe perhaps there was some confusion. Yes, exactly. This is not foam core. It's hard plastic. So we're good to go there. But I do 100% agree, now that I know the concept, that you do need to worry about foam core warping or distorting if you do put a lot of watery type substances on it. Fantastic. Just bringing my chat number over here so I can see how many people are hanging out with us this evening. Okay, so let's get back to this here. And matter of fact, I'm going to grab, I don't have a lot of materials here, so I'm going to go back and forth quite a few times. So feel free to chat and ask questions. Okay, so when, and we will do this after we cut these couple panels here, probably going to do about an hour or so live show tonight, so maybe a bit longer. But when we glue this on here, what we're going to do is we're going to need to take some skewers. Just going to grab a skewer here, and we're going to build ourselves a walkway along the top here. Now, the lines that I have on here, there's lots, but I'm going to be using the dark black lines. Now, a couple reasons that I had to do so many lines is I was trying to mathematically work out what the best way to do this. So let me just remove this, and it's a lot easier if I show here. So the natural tendency, once you glue that thing on, that howdah, if you will, I guess this is the appropriate term for it, is you want to start sticking a skewer flush to the building and then straight out to the edge. Now here's the problem with that. Let me grab a couple here. If you do that and you start, and I'm going to glue another one beside that, and another one beside that, and another one beside that, and so on and so forth, what you'll end up having is something that looks like this. Let me just sort of get some skewers together. You'll end up having something that looks like this, and what's going to naturally happen is you're going to get more of a straight walkway, not something that's going to follow the curvature. So it's going to get artificially shorter and shorter and shorter, and it's not really going to follow because one, you can offset, but then you're going to end up having to cut all these, and when you cut all those, you're going to have some that are long and then some that are short, and you're going to have really, really short ones when you get here that are going to be really quite straight and not following the contour. You can see that this is what it should be, and if I continue this pattern, it's going to be something like this. It's not going to stack well. It'll be offset, but then when you get out here, if you follow that pattern, you're going to have one super long skewer that's going to be running like that, and it's not going to work. And so we needed to find a better solution for that. Dark Miner is asking, is there any special method you use to find reference images, or do I just Google? Typically I start with Google, but I'll tell you, to be quite honest, I draw a lot of my inspiration for what is around us. So obviously there's no Kashik style trees, and we don't have any of these huts here. So what we do have is we have, let's say, resorts in warm locations that would have huts or buildings of this nature. We definitely have some gnarly looking trees, even though they may not be to the scale. They definitely have that knot, like that rock-like bark feature. So I'll look at something like that. If I'm thinking about the way to approach a beach, well, I'll look at a beach. I won't necessarily go find model beaches. If I'm looking for something like what does snowfall look like on uneven or broken farmland or ground, upturned. I'm thinking kind of back to my 15 mil days. So then I would go look at well, I live in Canada, so winter is just basically always here. But I look around for natural inspiration because if I'm replicating something that occurs naturally, the best source is to actually look at it in real life. And so that's really truthfully where I draw my inspiration. Now, for the particular stylization or features of these buildings on this sheet table, obviously that's where I'm going to go look for an actual image, a reference photo, something like that. And I've been able to find some fantastic stuff. I don't play video games, unfortunately, so I never really had the sort of the ability to kind of play through some of that stuff, that lived experience. But I can find quite a few Google images that do help me with that. Just one second, folks. Somebody's pinging me here on the Facebooks, and I don't have any ability to check that. Oh, no worries. That's just Jace who's hanging out with us. So hopefully, Dark Miner, that answers your question there. So let's have a look at the other sort of scenario that I came up with. So what I did, let me go grab the other piece because I created two jigs. So the jig that I made next looked like this here. And basically what I did was I mapped out the radius of this circle here, and I'm kind of using the overhead and the side cam. So I mapped out the radius and I created myself a quarter section, and I was like, you know what, I can just use this as a template and I can draw lines, and the lines will go right from here from the center and go out, and everything will be fantastic. Now, bonus points, but I'm only giving you a minute. Tell me what is wrong with this design. Seemingly, it's the exact same piece going all the way around. It's got a nice line protruding from the center. What is wrong with this design? 30 seconds, first one in chat, imaginary bonus points. Time's ticking. Type fast. Tick, tick, tick. It's an interactive show, folks. You got to play along. I gotta start giving away. These TerrainStudio T-shirts here too. Actually, that's a fantastic idea. I think next week I will do a giveaway. I gotta get the numbers up because I gotta make it sure we have some sort of challenge. Okay, Joseph's coming in with I think that means he doesn't know. And welcome. Joseph was wondering if I was going live tonight, so here I am, and here you are. Fantastic. No one in chat. Okay, I'll tell you. I'll give you the hint. I also originally did not see it when I was making this jig. So the jig itself works. Okay. Just I gotta move this window here. Okay, fair enough. So Jace indicates here, no one knows we are here watching for the reason. Fantastic. So the reason this doesn't work is the center point is where I'm pivoting right here. However, there's no ability to draw a line. So even if I draw a line from here, if you look and you draw that, it actually comes to slightly off center. And I'll hold my finger right there just to prove it to you. And that, by the way, is my dog who loves to draw attention. Hey, get off that bed. Where's Jace going to sleep when he comes here? If you're making a mess over there. So this gets drawn to the offset center. So as I'm drawing those lines around, they're all referencing back to an off-center point, which means this design will be off center and actually won't follow the contour of the building itself. So what I then ended up doing was I then just drew a line and cut this so that it drew back directly to the pivot point. So now as I'm going around, I can draw in radiance and I'm able to follow the contour. Effectively what I'm able to do is if I'm laying a skewer down along this line, I can put it down and you can see how the skewers themselves should all reference back to the center point regardless of where I put it, if that makes sense. I mean, I feel like if I would have given you 30 more seconds in chat, you all would have got that. But nonetheless, this is what we need to do. Now, there's one more thing with that. Now that we have the lines drawn, we can still, or we still believe, we have a tendency to think that, hey, we'll just start putting all the skewers now that they all reference back to the center. The problem with that is that we run into the exact same issue that we did before, where they won't run with the lines. It just won't work no matter what. So what we actually have to do is we have to create a spacing, and maybe the overhead's not the best to capture. So white on white doesn't quite work, but so we actually have to capture spacing, and we need to put a gap in between these. And so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to need to create an equalized space, and that space, I'm just going to quickly set this up. This is not how I'm going to do it when I work on it, but let me move those. The design needs to look something like that, and we need to keep drawing back to the center by putting a space in. Now, what we can then do afterwards is we can come back in and we can put a second skewer down, and that will fill in the gap because we're going to have a natural gap in between all of them. If you go back to, and I'll grab a piece that'll be a little bit better reference. Yeah, fair enough. Joseph, Chris is either toying with me with the mind blown or just making fun of me, the fact that I just took 20 minutes to explain that to you. Joseph coming in with the Abraham Lincoln quote here, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. I like it. Better to plan first than to act. Absolutely, that's kind of what the channel's all about here. I mean, truthfully, I don't show you guys all the fails first, but so if we go back to look at this one here, and I reference back to this because it A is using a similar technique, and 2, it gives you the stylization that we're going to go for. If you know, or if you saw this, when we radiated out all the skewers from the center, we had to still leave that gap. Now, for this one here, what we did is we kept doing bisections. We split it in 4, then we split it in 8, then we split it in 16. But you'll see that the gap that remains out here needed to be filled. And so what we did is we just took our skewers and we did a little piece back in like that, and then we cut it off. And so generally that walkway is going to look something like the outside of this. And it's just going to replicate that exact same design. The only difference, or the kind of the unique part of the one we're doing, is we will not have the center reference to go back to because we're going to have this large hut piece there. So that's the problem. We had to figure out a way of mapping that out and being able to reference back. Now, here's the other challenge that we didn't have with this one. Because we were bisecting, we were basically able to eyeball or split everything evenly each time. We don't have that ability here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take one of these skewers. We're going to mark off the appropriate distance. We're going to use that as our gauge. And then when we're laying down the skewers, we'll just put this in as a spacer, and then we'll lay the next one down. Move this spacer, lay the next one down. That's going to give us a very consistent gap. We'll come in later, cut the skewers to length, glue them in, and then we have it all solved. So we're solving all the world's problems as it relates specifically to the problems that I have. We're not actually solving any other problems or dilemmas. So that is that. Let's have a look at cutting a few more panels, if you guys are okay, and then you guys can ask questions along the way. So let me just quickly go grab a couple items to work with right here. Okay, so here we are back. Just going to set these few items down. Grab ourselves a little cutting mat. Is the black work better? I think the green's probably better. They're not doing the green because it thinks it's a green screen. Christopher Zenga, if you are still in chat, I brought over a couple pieces here. I'm going to use them, but I wanted to talk about this. Just with the idea of using jigs. So the idea with this piece here, for example, the side panels, the panels that we did over the coming days or the last couple days, you'll notice that this right here, it's very thin. It's thick, it's thinner than what we used, but this ended up being the panel. So we were able to replicate that. And for the most part, with a few tweaks here and there, we were able to identify and index those in to create the sidewall look. Then the next piece, the piece that we're going to be working on now, it is tucked underneath there, but that ended up being this right here. Now I created this jig here first from the existing jig, and effectively if I lay that on, you guys can see that's what the panels look like. This is actually slightly thicker than what I'm using on the actual panel. I didn't like the recessed look. I thought it was a little bit too much, so I went with half that. But this is a jig that I'm using. So the jig I'm using is a little bit thicker than the one I'm using here. Again, it doesn't really matter what material you use as long as you don't end up cutting it up and you reference it each and every time. And so you can see kind of this recess that goes around the window. First I referenced in the window, then I used a ruler to kind of create that sort of archer awning that goes around that. Then I'm going to add in a couple 45 pieces. They're going to look like this. If I can hold one in place. See if I can hold this whole thing together with my hand with no glue. I think I can do it. Yes, there you go. So now you can see the 45s are up in the corners as well, and that is the exact look that each panel. So minus the 3 rods that run along the bottom and the edges, but I think those are pretty evident on the piece itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on these. I already have the 45s cut just to save a little bit of time, but I'll show you how to use those jigs and how I use jigs to kind of speed up the process. All right, so what we're going to do is we have just some of the material here, and hopefully this is close enough in for you guys. Maybe I'll adjust the camera just a touch more. Bring you guys in just a little bit more. Just let me know if that's too close or if you're missing anything specific. Yeah, Joseph making note about the layering. I agree. One of the things that gets, like I said, lost in translation is when you start layering white on white on white. It's really going to start to become evident when you paint it, you add your inking, you get some buildup of the layers, and really that the ability to add depth and shadow comes through a lot stronger when you actually have depth and shadow. So right now we don't have depth in the color. We have it physically, but not doesn't translate very well. So, okay, now what we're gonna do is grab our jig, and we're just using this piece that we've measured off here, and it should have one edge that's pretty close, pretty close to what we have, so these align nicely. So I'm just going to set that down. Generally, I'll just use a ruler, tap it up, make sure it's a flush. You're going to see the beauty of working with a 1/2 mil plastic card as opposed to the 2 mil that I've been working with. So again, just light scoring cut, always a scoring cut first, no pressure at all, and then 1 through, generally 2 cuts per 1/2 mil. This is 1/2 mil, so 2 cuts is fine. Snap, there we go, we're good to go. That gives us our rough template. So we got something that's matched up to here nicely. Now what we need to do is we need to cut out the window arch. So again, set that down, use my ruler, tap that. Okay, so here's one of the things I'm going to tell you right now that I do a lot, and I can't encourage it enough. If I cut this right now, I guarantee that it will not work on my piece. I already know this. There's 2 problems. One, these are very clean and defined edges. However, if the plastic that I put on the windows is not 100% vertical, or a piece that I added is 1/2 mil or 1/4 mil skewed one way or the other, because remember, everything's done by hand, this jig right here, even though it's a known quantity, won't fit. It's the starting point, it is not the end point. So before you cut anything, you set your jig aside. Please do not cut that. You set your excess material aside. You'll need that later. Set your blank. This is your blank. And you're going to set that on your piece. This is the only piece I'm working with. It's the only piece that's on this mat right now. So I need to go to the section that I am going to be putting this into. So it's right here. I'm going to have to do adjustments each time, but I have no problem doing that. There we go. I need a cameraman here, or woman. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this one right here. So let's grab our blank. Now we can pick this up, and we're going to slide it in here. Oh, lo and behold, it actually doesn't fit. Okay, it doesn't fit. Here's why. One, the gauge was cut to go under these struts. So the struts are already on there, and they're too narrow, which we know. Why not cut a gauge to fit in here? Because each of these struts was put in vertically by hand. If this one is a 1/2 mil over and this one's a 1/2 mil over, then even if I cut a blank, it's probably going to be too shy to go in here. If this one's a 1/2 mil in and this one's a 1/2 mil out, then maybe it's perfect. If this one's a 1/2 mil in, this one's a 1/4 mil, it doesn't really work. So I want to get something that's close. That's what I start with. So I check each side. This side here, not bad. This side over here definitely needs some work. It's also a little long, and that's because we cut these to go right up to the roof, but you'll see the curvature of the roof creates a little bit of an issue, so we need to do some curvature up there or some flush cutting on the bottom. We'll do all of that now. So what we're going to do first and foremost, we got to figure out how much are we cutting off. All right, well, I'm just going to relax this a little bit, and I'm just going to eyeball measure. Not really eyeball measure, but just mark off, okay, you know what? I need to take a little bit on the top and a little bit more meat on the bottom. So I'm gonna start there. Again, it goes back onto my cutting mat. And then I'm gonna start in on trimming it down. Using my lines as gauge. Nice cut, you can get right through that. If you're trimming, you don't want to do a scoring cut. It displaces too much material. You just want to go right straight through if you're just shaving off pieces. Okay, looking at that. All right, it's closer, but it still needs a little bit of work. But what we've done now is we've kind of leveled it up. So we got a much cleaner edge, we just need to take down a little bit more material. And I would much rather take off material a little bit at a time than ruin a blank and have to start back at the template stage. Okay, we're perfect there. The top just needs, we got 3/4 of it. The top is just in just a smidge, so we need to cut. Most of this stays the same, and we're going to angle cut towards the top a little bit more. All right, let me just, you know what? It's bowing a little bit, so I'm not gonna mess with that side. I'm gonna take my other side, gonna cut it exactly to profile. Just gonna thin it out a little bit. So I didn't change the line of that. I just took a little bit of the mass off. And now we have a very flush piece. You can see that fits in. It's not sliding, fitting very nicely. So, yep. Okay, so now we have that done. Let me go back because I didn't show you everything that you need to check. So now we have this referenced in. If we look at the neighboring piece though, you're gonna see that here we have a misalignment. Before you go hacking off the bottom in this case, you have to figure out why is it that it is such a discrepancy when all the pieces start the same. It just seems strange. And again, to look there, you got to go up to the roof line, and you can see that gap right there at the top. So we have to cut this piece to follow the curvature of that roof. So we're going to try to do that. We're going to eyeball this, and we're going to hand design it. So I know that basically the center is the high point, or is the gap point. So I need to angle cut or trim these other pieces on the edge. We'll put a little bit of a curvature in there and a little bit of a curvature there. I'm gonna take my sanding stick. Just gonna put a little bit of a okay, just got to take the middle down just a slight bit more. Okay. All right, so let me just show you that now. Now the gap is, there's a little teeny one there that we could probably do a little bit more work around, so we might as well, but it's pretty minuscule. Okay, so now, great, no gap, and then have a look at our bottom, let me move my finger out of the way here, have a look at our bottom alignment now. Now we're aligned. We didn't hack anything off there. So we could have made the mistake of hacking it off at the bottom, and if we did that, what we would have done was when we put our window cut in, which we haven't done yet, the window cut would actually be higher and would force everything up. And so really before you start hacking things and before you think you made a mistake, because that's the kind of the go-to, right? Everyone always assumes that, hey, I must have made a mistake here. Something's not right. Well, if you're using a gauge every single time to cut your blank, your gauge to cut your blank, then truthfully it should be the same starting point. So if there's a large gap or an error, it's probably something you already did as opposed to something you just did. Okay, so now what we need to do is one more reference point. We're going to slide that back in. It's also important too here, to give yourself or do yourself a favor and mark on here. Okay, this is the front, so it doesn't have to be anything. Could be a dot if you want. It's fine. But the reason being is if I put this down, set it down, do something else, come back, if I accidentally flipped it over and go to fit this in, well, guess what? It's going to be probably close, but it's not going to be the same. Now it's got wiggle room, right? It's not as tight as it was before. And if you cut the window in and do it upside down, it's going to be completely wrong. So just do yourself a favor, put a little dot on there. What we need to do now is we need to find where the pinnacle of the window is, and it's going to be behind here. So what we need to do is shine some light on it and then put a little bit of dot. So if you just bear with me, I'm going to use some light, shine a dot, or shine some light on this, and put a dot there. Okay, so I've done that. Now, maybe you don't want to use a dot to mark your front. You'll put an F or whatever, but the dot is there. And the reason that I need the dot is for the next step. So let me bring you in just a little closer here. There we go. So what we're going to do for this next one is we're going to go back to our blank, and we're going to line up the bottom. And now instead of trying to perfectly flush mount this, all I really want to do is figure out roughly where the center is. And so what I'm doing is I have one dot here, and I'm going to put the window topper right at the top of this. Make sure that my piece is correctly oriented. Yeah, that looks pretty close. And it's going to just be a close thing. Now, you can draw your lines in here, or you can just cut. I'm just going to cut. And I'm just going to hold this down, making sure it's not going to slide anywhere. Put my knife right in the corner. And then I'm just going to drag for an etch line. And the reason I do this is I etch first because if I happen to shift or move this, at least I'll have something to come back to. And I'm just cutting this really, really lightly because I don't want to move my gauge. Okay, so there we go. I have it scored. Just going to flex, flex, flex back for a pop, back for a pop, walk it up to the top, use my knife to trim out any flash, sanding stick to clean any burrs. Now I'm going to go back to my section that I'm working on. This one right here. Got to angle this back up. So working right here, I'm going to check my piece. Here we go. And you can see that we've done the cowling now around the window, and it looks pretty symmetrical on either side. Everything else looks quite nicely at the top, so we're going to go ahead and glue that in. Okay, just bear with me while I glue this. It's going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to use my glue straight out of the bottle. Again, Bob Smith Industries gap filling glue. Love the gap filling glue. Just put a little bead on it. I generally just go kind of in the middle of the back. So just some glue like that. And I'm going to make sure that I fit it right into the top section so you guys can see in the overhead here. Just going to slide that right into the top, push it down in. And then just give it a nice solid press. And it looks something like that. There we go. Okay, what was this? Sanding stick, does it come in different grits? Yes, it does. This is a medium one, and they'll come in coarse, fine, extra fine. And they're kind of unique shapes, so just depending on what surface and what area you need to get into. I really like sanding sticks. You can get really thin ones too, kind of like almost like they look like a pretzel thickness, like they're pretty like stick pretzels. They're kind of looks like that, and yeah, they're very, very handy. Nice for shaving into these windows and getting burrs and things like that. So next, what I'm going to do is just put these 45s in the corner. It's nothing fancy. It's just a small strip of plastic card. It's cut a 45 on either side. First, what I do is just do a dry fit to make sure that they fit. Again, primarily, I'm just concerned the roof line is not 100% at 45. So if I need to do any trimming, I will do that at this point. But this one looked okay. Just a teeny bit of glue on the back. Slide that guy in. I said I like that, but I didn't like where I put it when I glued it the first time, so I'm going to fix that. If you work quickly enough, you can. Piece was fine, I just didn't really like where I glued it. Let me try that again. There we go, better the second time. And the other one, just checking that. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, so we have that one finished. We have to do one more of these right here. So I'll do the process again, just this time I won't have to explain all the steps. Just get rid of all my excess material off here. I think I got not quite enough left for another blank, so I just need to cut myself another piece of material. I'm just going to use a larger piece at this point. Try to cut on the line to be a lot easier. There. And for this one, I'll just set my ruler down. Fantastic. Slide my material under the desk. Except for the piece that I need is still stuck on there. There we go. All right, so got another blank to work with. Same size as the one we had before, and we'll get rid of that. There's a question here from Joseph. It says, so I was gluing the indoor bunker from FFG and used plastic glue. It didn't bond very well in some areas, not at all. Any suggestions? No, that's perfectly fine, Joseph. Truthfully, I want all the process to be interrupted so I can chat to you guys about your questions. That's kind of what I like about live streams. So I'll tell you, to be honest, I always use super glue. I use super glue on battle droids. I wasn't in the plastic glue club. They worked fine. So I haven't opened my bunker, so I'm not 100% sure in terms of if it will work. I would suggest it probably would. I'm not 100% sure either if you were having issues with it just didn't bond because it wasn't left long enough, or if you're trying to wanting it to work a little bit quicker. I'm not sure if you're familiar with using accelerant for super glue, but this is a 5 to 8 second, I think it is. 5 to 15 seconds, sorry. And what I do is I actually use accelerant on this so that it's about a 1 second or an instantaneous hold. And what I do is I spray the accelerant on one piece. Fair enough, Mr. Bob Shadow is coming in here and letting us know that he can confirm that super glue worked fantastic, as I would probably predict. But if you're working with the bunker, and let's say you need something to solidify a bit quicker, accelerant is fantastic. One of the things that I often do is I will spray a surface with accelerant, and then I'll glue another piece and I'll stick it right on, and it tends to work pretty well. And so, sorry, Ben, I didn't know you were Mr. Bob Shadow. So that's Ben in there. But he is confirming for you, Joseph, which is truthfully what you were looking for, that it does in fact work. Okay, let's get this last of these done. I cannot explain how happy I am to have all the rods. The rods were so time consuming. They literally took me a couple hours to cut all these rods just to get them to fit in there. I was also worried about having gaps at the end because it's hard to see, but you'd think I'll cut the rod flush on the end, it will slide in. However, because the bunker has curvature to it, the pieces are actually angled like this. So when I had to cut the rod, I had to actually cut it on an angle so that it would slide in, because if I cut it flush, it would slide in, it would be flush at the bottom and a gap at the top like this, or it would be too much pressure and flex out the struts, and it was a whole bunch of problems. So fair enough. See, this is why I like a lot of people in chat, because I don't need to answer all the questions. There you go. Joseph, read Dark Miner's comment. And Mark's also giving you some advice here. Maybe try to clean hot water and soap the piece before gluing it. Also, good recommendations to clean plastic. They generally have a mold release that is maybe just something that you want to get rid of as good practice anyway. So I'll let you guys go on about your conversation in there. You don't really need to hear from me. I'm just going to go back in and do this exact same process again. So just, yeah, carry on amongst yourselves. Just nice to have some people to hang out with here tonight so that I can power through, get another live show. I think I'm 3 for 3. So lots of YouTube time this week. Nothing wrong with that. Means lots of terrain building as well. Tomorrow I imagine I'll be back at it quite a bit as well. So I'm just doing a little bit of trimming as I did before. And then we'll have a look at get some skewers done. Or at least started anyway. Something I probably want to stay concentrated on, but I'll work through a couple, just test out the theory, see if it works. Hey, maybe it doesn't. Maybe I got to go back to the drawing board on it. Be a live test. All right, so couple cuts, perfect, fantastic, fits great. Got the same gap at the top. You can't really see quite on that angle, but trust me, there's a small gap. I got the picture in picture, so that's my bane here. So right there, so we're going to take care of that curvature at the top like we did before. Or attempt to anyway. It's pretty good. Little to take down here. Smartest thing I ever did was put this funnel on the top of this piece so that I can grab it like a top. It's awesome. Or grab it like a handle, I should say, from the top. I'm just finagling this top cut just to try to get it in a little bit tighter. Yeah, I could probably live with that. So who do we actually have in chat tonight? So I've seen Ben's been in here. Dark Miner's been in here since the start. Joseph's in here. Marcus, he's in here. I know we had Chris in here earlier. Jace was, but there's only 4 people in now, so we've obviously lost a person or two along the way, which is fine. People got things to do that aren't watching this. But let us know if you pop into chat late or just for a moment, who you are, where you're from, what you're doing, all that good stuff. Just cutting out the window again. You guys have already seen all this stuff, so nothing new. Oh, Michael Hammond's popping in. Welcome, Michael. Michael, friend of the show. TerrainStudio, apparel owner. Michael and I played team tournament Las Vegas. Had a good time. That is a good question. Just 1 second, Joseph. I will answer you. So this is not artist choice. Let me see if I can attempt. I'm going to attempt to do something again. Let me swap over microphones here. Let me mute microphone. So you guys should hear me on this new microphone or another microphone for that matter. But let me just show you here. If I can, I'm going to attempt to do this. And there we go. And let me just pop back over here. Let me do a quick screen share with you as I attempt to do this. All right, so if I were to do screen share, and that's not what we're going to show you, but this. And so hopefully you guys are seeing, let me just zoom in the correct location right there. So that is, and if I zoom out a little bit here and zoom down, that's the building that we're working on. So you can see the window treatments and what we're doing there. You can see the roof line. And you can see how it's layered. And then so to answer your question, it's not artist choice, but it is for chimney sections. So the little accoutrements and the adornments that are on there, those will be put in. I call those the industrial pieces. And so we'll build those things. And you kind of see how the roof's offset. So on mine, I slightly offset the roof. And I'm going to show you guys that. So because at first I was like, geez, this looks wonky. It just looks like I'm doing it wrong. But to me, the roof looks a little offset, and not all of them are, but a few of them are definitely, and there's some other lower level buildings that also have offset roofs. So to answer your question, it's functional, and I just chose to go with that funnel. Now, let me just swap out of here and not do screen share with you guys. Just ignore all of that. I will go back to camera and I will mute this. unmute that microphone. So to answer your question, it's not, and I'm just going to tilt this up so that I can show you. But what I will end up doing is I'll end up shaving this down here a little bit. So it's not quite as high on there, but right now I just left it. And like I said, it's really nice because I can pick it up and use that. So if you look at the roof, let me just show you kind of what I did here. So this is 7 centimeters basically from here to here. So for the Americans, it's like just a little about 2 3/4 inches. And then on the back side, it's about 6 centimeters. So I only offset it a little bit just to kind of, because it really looked offset in there. And so it's going to be negligible at best, but just in case somebody sees that later, I was like, it looks like it's a little bit askew. So I went with that, and I'm rolling with that in the design. But we'll cut this down a little bit. We'll add a few more features around there just to kind of tie it in. I'm trying to replicate it fairly close. I think emulation's a form of flattery, and I really like the design, so I want to keep it true. But at the same time, I like to put my own little touch on things. And then physically, there's things that you can do in the digital world that are a little hard to translate specifically to the miniature world. Not impossible, but I'm not going for a direct replica because this is wargaming terrain. If I was going to do something like the Scarif bunker, the one that I built it for the Shore Trooper article, I wanted to go really ham on that. So it was about a 40-hour scratch build just on the one bunker. This one's not going to be quite there. It's going to be a lot, but just because it's fairly large. But I'm okay to have a few adornments and accoutrements that aren't quite replicated to that. I mean, truthfully, that's one form of it. There's probably 20 different ways that I could have built this based on the images that I saw. So, and then Dark Miner is asking me, what faction do I play the most now? So currently, I'm really heavy into clones. So I've been playing a lot of clones. Hopefully you guys are still picking me up on this microphone, by the way. I'm talking here and didn't actually do a mic check. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of clones lately. So a lot of Saber tanks, really, really high on the Saber tank. I like it. It puts out an obnoxious dice pool. As I said, it's got 270 degrees of weak point, but it has 90 degrees of awesomeness. And so if you just point that awesomeness towards someone, then generally you can delete things fairly quickly. So I do like that. So I've been on clones. First year I was all Empire. Second year primarily all Rebels. This year I'm going to be all clones, and I've done a smattering of droids since they've come out too. I really do like droids, but I hard shifted over to clones. I think clones are really efficient, and I just really got tired of getting polluted on by the dice pool and the token sharing. So I thought, hey, let's give that a whirl myself. So yeah, so that's what we're doing. But we only have 2 little pieces left, so let me not stall out here 100%. And I think I only brought over one of the 45. So 1 second, let me go grab the other one. Did in fact only grab one, so I need to do heat my glue gun up as well, actually, but we'll do that in a second. So just checking here, these 45s probably could angle you guys a little bit better as well, so you guys can see me. Nice thing about this camera, I can adjust it fairly quickly. So here we go. Yeah, so that one works great. I got to do something on the door. The door is a tomorrow project. The door is not a tonight project. The door requires me too much thinking, so. And I don't have the brain for that. I have already done about 5 hours of work today on terrain, so. But projects take a long time. Like, the amount of hours that goes into any one project is pretty extreme. All right, just let me get these last 2 pieces on. Then we get something done. Fielding less troops, but better quality. Yeah, definitely is what the clones are all about. Said you can't win with 8 activations, so you know, some people have said. I think you can. I think it's doable. And I think clones are a faction that can definitely do it. Yeah. Sorry, just reading chat at the same time, making sure I'm not missing any questions. Oh, there we go. I mean, I understand it's Saturday night, so the last place most people probably want to be, unless you're, you know, interested in the project. Did the cardinal sin? Dropped my piece, and then when I picked it up, I didn't reference it, and I of course glued the wrong side. So no worries, easy fix for that. If you ever are working with plastic card and you accidentally apply glue, don't worry. Take as much off as you can, sand it, the glue all disappears, and you're back in business. All right, press that into place, and voila. We now have every panel finished. Yay, small accomplishment. We have 3 blank panels. Those are blanked purposefully for right now, and 1 door left to do, but let's just pretend that it's all done. Now, I'm going to make this a little bit difficult on myself because ideally I would love to do the door before I glue this to the platform, but I'm all right, and I'm going to do it for you guys because I want to get some of the platform done, and truthfully I can work on the door because I've already framed it out. I can work on the door. I'll just cut myself a blank that fits perfectly. I'll work on that, and then I'll just slide it in. Just like you're doing a door in real life. You build your casing, which I've done, and then I'm going to, I see it's a little bit loose there, then I'm going to just slide my piece in afterwards. Well, I'm going to go quickly heat up my glue gun. I'm going to also put some super glue in there and let that re-solidify. Probably just knocked it loose in the 100 or 200 times that I've picked this piece up. So holding fast, if there's any questions, let me know. Are you going to make those larger pillars on the left of the... Oh, are you going to be making... Oh, of the picture. Gotcha. Well, currently I can't see the picture, but if you give me about 10 more seconds here, I'll set this aside, go plug in my glue gun, bring it over here, check the picture, and give you an answer. All right. Okay, so I just plugged the glue gun in underneath. If you guys are ever wondering why you don't really see it, I just try to keep the stream as clean as I can for you guys. You guys should have me back on here. Let me just, I'm not going to bring, well, I could probably bring the image up. So looking at this, left of the picture, pillars. Not 100% sure. All right, let's go to a screen share because I am not 100% sure what it is you're asking me about. But let me go to screen share, go here, and then you tell me, Dark Miner, as I slide out here, what exactly are we talking about? don't know if I can go out anymore, but left of the building you are making. Okay. Left of the building I'm making. Are we talking about this like landing platform that's like got the ship on it? Is that the one you're referring to? On the buildings. Large pillars. Geez, I wish I'm kind of dense, I guess. I'm not 100% understanding. You're not talking about the walkway on the left side of the building. Oh, like the... Let me see here. Please let me know if I'm getting anywhere close to what exactly you're talking about. Sorry, I'm really misunderstanding. I'm sure you're being 100% clear. If anybody else in chat can help me out with exactly what he's referring to. On the platform support. Mark's now helping me out here. I guess I'm also trying to figure out, Michael. I'm really invested in this question, so now I need to solve it. So if he's referring to the ring, then the answer is yes. I'm going to attempt to do that ring. But I'm not 100% sure if that's what he's meaning by pillars. The reference building is the one... Okay. The reference building is the one of the supports for the roof. Okay, I'm going to jump back over it. You guys are going to sort that out in chat, and I'm going to really look forward to figuring out what all that is. I guess I'm just not fully understanding what... I don't know if I'm going to do the vines. Let me just swap over microphones here. So I have an idea to do the vines, but I'm not 100% sure. I am going to do some secondary branches, and then we'll kind of see what that entails in terms of what I'm going to incorporate. So, fair enough. Okay, so everyone is trying to sort out, Dark Miner, exactly what you are looking at. If you want to snap that photo and put that in the TheTerrainStudio Facebook page with a circle or a reference to it, I'll absolutely answer the question. And truthfully, I'm doing my very best. I'm just not 100% sure what you mean to by pillars. So. Okay, thank you very much, because I do actually want to answer your question. So Paul's coming in. How goes the tree of quarantine life? Glad you're doing this. Well, no worries. I'm glad to have you here, Paul. Well, it's going well. We've advanced on the building quite a bit. So there's all the Each panel is effectively done now. We're just about to glue this thing here to this thing here, platform. And then we're going to see if we can get some skewer action going on. So I talked about this yesterday. I need to go grab the tree because I need to index the blanks. But it has a circle on there. We're going to come fairly close to gluing that on the circle. And we just have to make sure. Yeah, the dog bowl is actually still here, but it's an homage to the dog bowl, which is about to disappear. So it's good timing on your part, Paul. So we're going to glue this in. I just want to reference this in relation to where it fits on the tree, just to make sure that I don't end up having the doorway face a tree branch. So let me just grab the tree, get that over here. It's close by. Right, here it is. Oh, slide that into the image. We can give you guys a reference to that. We're gonna, oop, that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to tilt this, go way, 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 way up. I don't think we're going to be able to get it up that way, but we'll be able to go like this. And there we go. Fantastic. So let me slide this into place. Ish. Okay. I don't know if I have the skills with that, Joseph. So I think you guys are going to be maybe more impressed when this all gets done and you just don't really see any of the non-finished objects or pieces, because right now this pink tree doesn't look like much either, but I'm just kind of hoping that it will look like something when we get finished or get done in the end. So I'm just going to put this up here for a second. I know it doesn't really help you guys, but I just want to index this roughly for myself, draw a couple lines when I do glue this down. I need to actually walk around my own studio here. You guys can see me. Just checking the. Yeah, I think that works out okay. I like that. All right, so I'm just gonna take my pen and draw my 2 arrows for my door. Just gonna give me my index for that. So yeah, thanks for that, Dark Miner. I appreciate that. It is looking good. I mean, this is kind of like the model eye view kind of the tree, if you will. Obviously, the overhead cam's got some shots, so you know it's going to be. We're probably going to switch a few cameras when we use this to add some more. That's a big push right now for me, both on Legion Academy and the Patreon, is just to add another camera in here, just so I can bring all the angles. One of the downsides of having or bringing a lot of things is that I want to switch stuff around. Right now I have 3 cameras that I run. Having a 4th is actually instrumental because it means that I don't have to move one continuously, and that's a really big deal for me. So I'm glad you guys are liking it and the shots are kind of working out. It's getting better. It's you know, week by week I'm improving a lot of things here in the studio that aren't just terrain related. So and you guys are all a big part of that. So good motivation, good drive. So the question from Paul is, hey, what are you planning for the bark? Is there a tree? Okay, so I'm going to be modeling it pretty close to the tree that's in Kashyyyk, and what it really looks like to me is it has a fairly rock-like structure, or barky, rock-like bark at the bottom, and then it kind of moves up to be a little bit more like a more of a lush tree. I'm going to use celluclay as the material that I'm going to be using, and what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to cut some deep ridges and make it kind of bulbous and stony here at the bottom. Probably tie in some actual rock, and then as I move it up, I'm going to kind of smooth it out a little bit more, putting a few grooves and ridges in it here and there. I want to make some of the stuff kind of overgrown and sort of coming more into the tree. I really want to tie these structures in. Right now they're going to be more placeholders kind of set there, but I really want to incorporate, so I'm okay to have some of the bark go over some of the existing features that I'm building. I was saying yesterday that this is a kind of unique design where I'm building all the pieces to go on the big piece, as opposed to starting with the small ones and working my way up to something big. I started with the biggest feature, and now what I'm doing is just bulking out the smaller features relatively. It's everything is relative on this table. Everything is actually big on this table, and so there's not really a lot of small things. The smallest thing that's going to be on this table is going to be the figures. So yeah, the tree rings, the concentric tree rings, doesn't indicate growth. Maybe it indicates number of hours spent on this project. I'm not 100% sure, but okay, now what we're going to do though is I need to glue this guy in place, and I don't know if I could probably just glue it when it's here, I guess. I can just squish it down. Yeah, I can probably just do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the glue on the dog bowl, and I'm going to squeeze quite a bit out on there. And I need to grab my other glue stick. So I knew it was gonna start to not run out, but it needs it to push the next one through. I'm gonna try. I might not get this in the first try. Sometimes I find I gotta try hot glue a couple times. I just find that it gives me fits sometimes. All right, here we go. We're gonna try to squeeze this down and get it right the first time. Give it a little twist, and then just do a little bit of checking here on it. Let's slide around a little bit, that's okay. And sorry if I'm just distracted for a moment and not paying attention to you guys. Just really working this. Pull this off. Give it a good squeeze. Yeah, I think that ended up working okay. It's not falling off yet, so there we go. Fantastic. Let me now set that aside and get rid of this hunk of foam. Okay. Fantastic. Just getting a drink here. Oh, what am I at for time here tonight? Oh, 1 hour and 35. Jeez, I was only supposed to hang out with you guys for an hour. I guess we'll go a bit longer. You seem like fine people, so we'll continue to hang out with you. Okay, so it's going to be rather difficult for me to show you this. Let me just create something that I can stand this up in. I guess I can make that work. Not really. I may need something else. Sorry guys, I'm attempting to figure out how to make this tree stand up for you guys now. I can't, okay, I can't quit till Ben's clones are done. Well, that might take a while. Well, maybe it won't. I don't know how close you are to finish, so I will safely assume that you will finish your clones before I finish this build. Okay, so if you were watching before when I was talking about using skewers, I was talking about all the ones that I cut off that I was going to conveniently use for this. However, what I discovered was some of the cutoff pieces that I've used were not super consistent, and so I would like to try to make this as consistent as possible. And so I'll just end up with a bunch more cutoffs, which I can totally use for other things like walkways and platforms and all of that sort of stuff. So I will use another new pack of skewers. By the way, they're $1.25, so not breaking the bank on this. But Paul asks, I'm working on Steam. I was wondering how to make the cotton stiff without losing the wispy look. Okay, fair enough. So one of the things that you could do potentially is if you take a material called scenic cement, or truthfully what you need to do is water down some PVA pretty substantially, and what you then could do is take a mister bottle and actually mist your cotton, and the fine mist should settle out on the cotton and start adding some stability to it. Be careful, obviously, that it's on just a mist and not spraying directly, because you don't want to get water droplets, because the water droplets will be glue droplets, which will then harden into just clear droplet. But if you were to mist that cotton, I bet you're able to probably have it stand up a little bit more. Another trick that you could try, depending on what your availability to spray the other things around it are, is you could try some hairspray. It's just some options for you. Okay, we are going to start on this now. Just want to be really clear on exactly the spacing and how this is all going to work. So I need to be careful with the first couple. Okay, so, and my apologies, I have to walk to my workplace to get the stuff. I don't have everything over here. Hello, Brian is joining us. Welcome. I am attempting to put the skewer down. This is the guide that I made, by the way. There's a little bit of yellow. That's painter's tape or masking tape for models. That's actually my guide and my gauge. I'm just going to thicken up this a little bit more. I'm going to tell you why. All right, so I'm going to do just a little bit of tool making here. So you just want to bear with me for a second. What I have is some H-beam or I-beam plastic card, and it's called that because it is shaped like an I or an H, depending on which one you're looking at. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take a small piece, and I'm going to take my gauge here, and I'm going to super glue on this gauge, and I'm going to super glue it on to my skewer guide. And the reason I'm going to do that is That way, when I'm spacing or gauging out the pieces here, all I have to do is slide the guide on, and the H-beam, which is underneath, will catch, and that will set and allow me to be super consistent. So rather than try to set it on there and then, you know, maybe my hand moves back and forth and wiggles a little bit, I'll just be able to lock it in place, at least on the edge. As long as I keep pressure on it, it won't move or slide. So that'll help me out. Yeah, thanks, Brian. I was just finishing up the windows there, so you can kind of see it's a little bit difficult, but there's 3 layers of plastic card. So you have the window layer, the dress up layer here, the adornment or the casing, and then there's another piece here, and then we got all the rods done. I actually did those today, and they took an excessively long period of time, and we won't talk about it. So, no, they weren't too bad. What I'm going to do is start here at the door, start working my way around, and I brought over my flush cuts, and these, I said before, I don't really like using them on the skewers because it kind of pinches off the end. I actually found that, or they can, I actually found that these ones weren't too bad. They do pinch the end if you look there, but I found that they were no worse off than cutting them and getting little slivers. So I'm going to flush cut most of these just to save me. What I found before when I went in and tried to flush cut all around, the pressure with the next door neighbors of the posts, the other bamboo skewers, oftentimes pop them off. To put a lot of pressure on it. I don't really want to do that with this piece because I have quite a few, and if it peels off, the foam core is going to create a little bit of a mess. So no, actually, this is what I did with the doorway. I did this for now. I was just saying that I'm going to just create a gauge, a blank that'll fit there. I'll pull that off. I'll work on the door separately and then just slide that in there. So I'm not 100% sure what exactly I'm going to do there just at this moment. So in the interest of pressing on, I decided that I'm just going to leave it. Okay, well, here goes absolutely nothing. We're going to glue the first skewer down, the first of many. And if you want to put some predictions in chat, we'll save them for next time because we won't know for quite a while. How many skewers will it take to encircle the entirety of this? I'll give you a hint. Overhead shot. This is 200. So, and when I say skewer, I mean individual piece. So it may be one skewer that's cut into multiple pieces, but we're going to count that as an individual skewer. Okay, so now what we need to do is put the guide on. And so how I'm using the guide, it's not the best angle, I understand that. Let me just sort of angle it this way there, and then let me bring you guys in a touch closer, and hopefully that will give you an idea of what exactly it is I'm doing. All right, there we go. So hopefully that's a bit better, and let me bring it out of the... So now what we're going to do is drop the guide. Gauge is going to go right there. And that's just going to give us an indication of where the next skewer is going to be. Now, we're going to reference the next skewer back to, although I just seen one thing I need to be careful and cognizant of my gauge, is that I need to make sure the sides aren't interfering with the angle, and I'll show you what I mean like that in a second. These little tangents that don't mean anything to you guys, but nor should they. They're just really irrelevant stuff for the interest of this, but I will. So what I was meaning by that was I need to be very careful of the spacing, and because I have to angle back the skewer, I want to make sure that I don't have anything that's adding any thickness. Now, here's another thing. The flushness of the manufactured skewer is nicer than the pinched one. So the reality is I will actually use another skewer, set this aside because I'll use the tip when I do the infill. But each skewer I'm only going to be able to use about 4 inches of, and then I'll use a couple inches, probably about 1.5 inches, and then I'll have a nice section in the middle that will be pinched on either end, and that'll be great for walkways and things like that. So okay, so that one's going to go there. I just need to apply glue and also cut this. So basically going to have to put it on, measure it for cutting, and then put the gauge on, and then go for gluing. Now this one you can't really see, but if I slide my knife in, it doesn't quite go to the building. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to split the end of this skewer. So we're going to do a little bit of carpentry here, and we're going to have this skewer fit around the housing. So this will be intricate here. I'm gonna have to split a skewer in half and then try to walk it in, just like you're doing kind of trim or molding around a door jamb, except we're doing it with a bamboo skewer around a Wookiee hut. So, you know, similar, but not so similar. Now these things don't really cut the best. They split really good. They don't flush cut very well. Right. Not bad. Feel free to ask your questions, folks. So my apologies if I get a little quiet. It just happens when I'm trying to think and use every one of my brain cells. I really hope I don't have to split a bunch of these skewers. I didn't care about the gap, but I do, so I have to. Okay, so would it be possible down the road for me to commission you to make sure? Absolutely. So Joseph, this is what I do first and foremost. By the way, jeez, I wish I could. Let me see if I can bring you guys in to see that. Oh, I can. Fantastic. All right, 1 second. I want to show you this. Sometimes I do things that are fun and neat, but that doesn't translate well onto camera. There we go. And then I'll answer your question. So that is the piece that we're trying to go into. So let me grab a skewer here. So the issue I was having was this goes in, and then you can see that doesn't reach. Yeah, I have you zoomed in right now, Paul, just to show you the specific thing. So hopefully this is translating well enough. So it doesn't reach all the way there. So what I did was I just cut this. Geez, how? And there it is. So I just cut this like so. And now what we have is bingo. Just use the wire cutters to split in half the tip of it. Yeah, it's the problem is the skewer splits really quickly, and so I want to make sure I don't split the skewer too far. So there we go. That's what we're going to do, and then we're going to just glue that down. I just have to mark the end of the skewer here so that I can flush cut it, and then we'll have 2 of these done. So you can see it's going to take a little while, but it'll look good in the end, I think. Okay, just checking that. Fantastic. And then I will zoom you guys back out. Here we go. So to answer your question, Joseph, yes, first and foremost, that is what I do. That is what the Terrain Studio is. It is a commissioned terrain making service. For about 11 months, I did nothing but work for FFG. and so I was contracted to do a whole bunch of things, most of which I wasn't able to show for obvious reasons. And so I kind of was a little bit quiet. I was very busy, but I just wasn't able to be as present as I had been in the past years. And so that's what I actually love to do. It's the commission terrain pieces, it's the custom pieces, it's working with the customer. I'm not sure if Michael's still in chat here, but Michael has been a customer in the past. He can attest to kind of what kind of service I provide. I won't ask him to say good or bad, but he definitely got a lot of communication with me. We remained in communication around projects, and kept him in the loop, asked for a lot of feedback, showed him lots of stuff. And so absolutely, if you are in the future looking for something, I would love a consideration, that's for sure. If you like what I'm doing, then by all means. And then Chaucer's in there. He is a patron of mine, and we've connected. At the $15 tier, you get access to me, and really it's just around troubleshooting or how-tos, or hey, I'm thinking about this, or hey, what recommendation do you have for a product? And all that stuff is really things that I'm more than happy to help people with as well. So, and it's not that I won't answer questions other times. I'm just saying it's a dedicated time where really we're troubleshooting your specific stuff, or even talking about a project or planning a project or what have you. So, or you're planning a project, want some help, a think tank, if you will. Fair enough. So, okay, so thank you, Michael. Highly recommend working with Sean. You get blah, blah, blah chance. And Chaucer is also saying I've helped him out in the past, which is great. This is kind of what I like to hear. I like to have heard that I was able to help people. If you're not in it to help people, then I'm not sure what. I guess it's not just a money-making scheme, that's for sure. So still have a day job, which is helping people, ironically enough. So there we go. Hey, we are 3 skewers closer to being finished. So let me just continue to work here a bit more before I can kind of show you stuff. It looks like it's following a rotation, so I'm thinking that's somewhat working. Looks like it's going to follow those lines fairly closely. Just want to make sure that that's... I don't want to get too far, because if it isn't, I need to peel them up. But I don't know. I feel like we're going to be able to follow some pattern, some resemblance of a pattern. All right, so let me just haven't had to split too many, so that's nice. Going to be a lot of tedious pick this up, put that down, pick this up, cut that, mark this, pick this up. Definitely something that's going to translate better off camera, a little bit more industrious when I'm not trying to keep things in frame, and standing up to work is also a little bit of a challenge. So weird not being able to see the center, so I have no idea if we're angled towards the center or not. It looks relatively like we're following the circle, but I don't know. It also looks a bit straight. So the Scarif board is what attracted me in the first place. And then you're wondering, oh, so yeah, if you go on the Patreon, which you have access to, there is an entire walkthrough of that table. But if you're looking for more past that, I might be able to help you out. But maybe we'll chat specifically about what particular element you're looking for, because I'd have to go back and look into my pick files just to find reference for you. I just want to take a really quick, before I glue too many of these, I got a couple more lines. There's so many reference lines on here. I want to make sure that I'm getting close to following the lines that are coming out. I think we're doing okay. I'll give it a couple more pieces here, and then we'll call it an evening anyway. Then I can actually work on this off camera and bring you guys back. I won't do all of it. I'll do another section so I can get something kind of finished, and then I'll bring you guys back in a future video to do a bit more, and then we'll look at that. I need to set these cut skewers aside so I don't confuse the ends. Fantastic, thanks, Dark Miner. Don't forget to find that photo and reference it for me, because I truthfully now am very intrigued and I want to solve, or at least answer your question appropriately. So, but thanks for hanging out for the evening. Do 3 more of these and see what it looks like. Go. I think it's really hard to reference whether this is following a contour or not with only 4 or 5 pieces. Like I said, it's really freaking me out that I can't see where the center of these pieces are going. It's like they're disappearing into the building. But that's, I guess, good in a way, because that's the look I'm going for here. So. And again, no ability to cut these all the same at the same time, because each piece is going to need to be uniquely measured, just based on the depth of the building, and then whether there's a protrusion or something needs to be cut around something or what have you. Trying to keep the all the cuts upright as well, the pinch cuts. And the tool did not do a very good job on that one. The bamboo absorbs the super glue, so you kind of have to work a bit quicker. It's nice because you don't get a lot of excess extruding out the sides, but at the same time you got to work fairly quickly to make that happen. Oh, fantastic. So he actually popped. So if anybody's interested and has a second, you can go find Dark Miner has put the photo, the elusive pillar photo, on the Facebook page. And if you want to go and reference it for me, that would be fantastic. I can reference myself, but it just gives me something to do for the next minute or so. If anybody else was intrigued as I was. Well, Joseph, if I can use a couple movie quotes here, I will say, you ain't seen nothing yet, truthfully, on this project, and then at the same time I'll use a Han Solo quote to say, "Don't get cocky, kids." So, not trying to toot my own horn there. I just mean, if this is going to come out to look like it is in my mind's eye right now, we got lots more to go. So, almost every project at some point looks like utter garbage, and then in the end they all come together. So, another great movie quote there from the A-Team. I love it when a plan comes together. So, the old adage of give me a minute, I'm good. Give me an hour, I'm great. Give me, well, however long this is going to take, 8 to 10 weeks, unstoppable. No, I'm not going to go that far, but just saying, time is going to translate into to a much better overall and end result. All right. Yeah, 35 to 40% is probably a fairly good estimate for this part of this alone. So, yeah, you want an overhead shot of this platform here? That wouldn't be too difficult, except for angle-wise, Paul, it's going to be a little bit hard to show, but that's what it looks like there. If I go kind of center of the camera, so you can see that it has about a figure width outside of the roof, and then it's about probably 3 figures wide total. So I'm not sure if that's what you mean by an overhead shot, but and then that right there is kind of what we're doing for skewers. So it looks like it is somewhat following a contour. If I were to hedge my bets, I think it'll be fairly close. So I'm going to continue working on this for a little while, but I am going to sign off here if there's no any lingering questions. I do appreciate that. The crowd is increased, which is nice. I know these videos are not everyone's thing. Everyone's just not into building, but it is cool just to hang out. So if I can just make this as a platform for people to come, and you guys had a great chat and conversation tonight, I will leave the stream open just for that purpose alone. So thanks for checking things out. I'll jump back on Facecam here. I should be a better host and actually end with my face as opposed to my talking hands. So let me slide back over here, mute the other microphone, come back on live chat here. So like I said, thanks for hanging out, folks, supporting the Terrain Studio. And I mean, support can come in all forms. Just hanging out and being in the chat is definitely a form of support that I appreciate very much. This is all free Patreon content, but if you're interested in seeing any of the past projects, Joseph has mentioned a few. There is all of the videos for the projects up there, some walkthroughs, some how-tos. A lot of the content is starting to become released publicly if it's 3 to 4 or 6 months old. But I do try to put up as much as I can. I try to do at least a video, an in-depth video a month for everyone. They take a little while to make, but I try to do some updates and kind of behind the scenes shots that I don't release publicly on there as well. So if you want to check that out, it's just TheTerrainStudio, and you can find that at patreon.com. Also on the Facebooks, there is the Terrain Studio page, and if you want to check out, let me just pop over here. We do Legion Academy podcast every Tuesday. Typically it's around 7 Central, so just ignore the time there, but that is done on Tuesday. Fridays, we do Friday night fights here in studio, and they're on hold, of course, because coronavirus has decided that we can't be together and we can't skirmish and fight each other, which is maybe a blessing, but also potentially a downside if you're looking for Legion Academy or Legion content. And of course, you can find me on the general Legion forums or terrain pages and all that good stuff. So much appreciated. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Paul. Michael was here. Thank you, Darkminer. Thanks, Ben, Jace, Brian, all the folks that were in chat tonight over the evening. Much appreciated. I will see you guys maybe tomorrow afternoon. I might jump on for a little while. If not, the stream schedule is here. And so it looks like for me, I did Thursday, I did Friday, I did Saturday, I might do Sunday, but my next scheduled one is going to be on Friday for another actual live session. And so you will see quite a bit of work potentially done by next Friday. Like I said, I might get on tomorrow, but then I kind of have to stay dedicated through Tuesday and Wednesday. We're going to do some Legion Academy content, but feel free to find me on any of those mediums, those platforms. If you have a message, just send it to me directly. I should mute that microphone. I will answer you back as quickly as possible. So till next time, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.